Welcome to our fourth video about the Yeastar series. In this video, we will see how to add an inbound route and how to add an outbound route. First, we will see how to add an inbound. By clicking on Add, you will see a page where you will need to give a name to your configuration. For example, we will call it GSM because we are using a GSM gateway. Next, you choose the trunk you want to use for the configuration of your incoming calls. It is not necessary to configure all the settings, but you will need to specify a number for incoming calls. This number will be the one that people use to contact you. When someone calls this number, the call will be directed to your system. Next, we have the time conditions, which are very important. As you know, the people who will call us will do so at specific hours. These hours can be set based on global business hours and holidays or the specific hours of a company. You can also configure and modify them later by clicking on Heure d'ouverture et jours fériés. Once everything is properly configured, click on Save to save the changes. The dial pattern is the number that essentially is used by callers to reach us in the system or network. Next, we move on to configuring the outbound routes. Click on Add and enter a name, for example, Outbound GSM. Next, the X in the dial pattern means that any digit between 0 and 9 can be used, like, you can specify the number you want to use to call other people, then choose the trunk you will use to make these calls. Additionally, if you want to restrict access to external calls, you can set up a password so that only authorized individuals can make outbound calls. For the extensions, you can select which ones will have permission to make external calls. You can also create a group of extensions that will have this permission. For example, you can choose 2 people who will be allowed to make external calls. Don't forget to add these extensions or this group to the configuration. Then, as mentioned earlier, you can configure restrictions based on the global business hours and holidays, etc. Click on Save and your outbound route will be created. The autoclip option is really very useful. For example, if you called a client and recorded their information, and then that person calls back the same number a few weeks later, the call will automatically be transferred to the same extension they contacted previously. This allows the person to process the request quickly, as they will already have the necessary information. Now, let us move on to the business hours and the holidays, which are important. To configure the business hours and holidays, click on Add to manage the start and end times. You can also configure break times by specifying the start and end times of the break. You can set these hours for each day of the week, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, etc. Next, you can specify the days and times during which a person can receive calls. Then, returning to the holidays, you can configure specific periods where calls will be handled differently based on your business needs. For example, you can define specific holidays for each region, such as America or other areas, according to logistical requirements. For the emergency numbers, you need to specify a few. Thank you for your attention and goodbye. The largest stock of VoIP with dozens of brands. With us, you will find what fits your budget and your needs. And most importantly, everything comes with a warranty on the equipment and installation.